So you've got your Airbnb business ready. You're ready to launch your first property. Well, before you do that, the first thing that you need to do So if you want me to get rid of the intro trailer and not surprise you again with it, give me a thumbs up, hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm, whatever it is, leave a comment, let me know. So let's get into the content. Today we're gonna be going through the 3 things that you need to know before you launch your Airbnb. So tip number 3, your listing. And what do I mean by a listing? What I mean is, it's one thing to have a listing where you have some photos, you have a little bit of description of your space, but it's a whole nother project to make sure that your listing is completely optimized so when a guest clicks on your listing, they're more likely to actually make a reservation. Now, the first thing about your listing is your photos. I can't stress this enough. Getting good photos will either make or break your Airbnb. And I'm not kidding. If you take photos on an old Samsung Galaxy 2 and you think that that's going to be enough to get you a few reservations and then you'll invest in photography, I really advise against it. Now, these photos are the first impression of your property. So you want to make sure that all of the great things about your property are included in those photos. Do you have a great view? Are you close to the beach? Are there natural hiking trails near you? Do you have a hot tub? Do you have great lights? Regardless of what it is, you want to make sure that those first photos, and in particular the first 5 photos, have those features that make your listing stand out from the competition. And I promise you, investing in a photographer now is going to pay you back 10 times over the next few months. The other piece of your listing, and to make sure that it's fully optimized, is the description. When we think about writing out a description, you want to make sure that it's story-like. You're not just saying, hey, we have space over here for you to sleep and we have a queen bed and we've got some blankets. Now, you want to make this an experience because if a guest is looking at your description, they're obviously interested and have already looked at some of your photos. So this is really part of the closing process of making sure that they place a reservation. Now, tip number 2 is your team. Now, what do I mean by team? Now, these are ultimately the people who are going to be interacting with your Airbnb on a weekly or monthly basis. And really, more than anyone that I'm talking about is your cleaner and handyman. Now, really, your cleaner is your first line of defense in this business. They're gonna be the ones in the property the most, especially if you don't live on the property or very close to it. They're also going to be your first line of defense if something were to break. Or if a guest had a dog and they didn't tell you, and all of a sudden you've got fur everywhere and somebody needs to clean it up and you have to pay your cleaner double. Damn! The cleaner can also give you recommendations. Usually they're working at multiple Airbnbs, so they have seen a little bit of what the market is. And so by tapping your cleaner to say, hey, what would you recommend I add to this Airbnb so the guests are even more enamored with my space, has really been helpful for me in my business. And one of the ways that you can make it easier for your cleaner is also to provide them a cleaning checklist. If you're interested to see one of my cleaning checklists, let me know in the comments and I'll put it in my description on one of my future videos. And also pay your cleaners well by making sure that they're happy, and the fact that in most of these cases you can pass off the cleaning fee within your Airbnb listing directly onto the guest. It shouldn't really hurt your profits too much. Now, the second member of your team would be your handyman. You want someone who is local, who can quickly get to your place, and that you can call anytime during the day. Now, these handymen usually can't get out to your property right away, so if there's a great emergency or something that needs to be dealt with right away, you might have to go, but in a lot of cases, these handymen are really on call and ready to do whatever work that you have for them. And with that, also make sure you're paying them well. Also, if you have a great relationship with your realtor, they can actually provide a lot of these names for handymen and cleaners. And now we've arrived at tip number 1, your processes. Now, there's really only a couple of processes that I would focus on. Number 1 would be how to interact with guests. So on all of these platforms, there's usually automated messaging templates that you can use. Now, editing each one of those templates might take a little bit of time, but it's going to save you time in the long run. Now, the second important process that you need to nail down is how do you track income and expenses across all of your properties? Those things that you can't measure, you can't improve. And so by measuring all of the income, all of the expenses, you can improve how you run your listings, you can improve how you run your Airbnbs, and that's ultimately going to make you more money. Those are my top 3 tips before you launch your Airbnb, and because you've watched this far, I'm gonna give you an extra tip. And that would be being resilient. Things will break, you'll have a bad guest experience, they're gonna write you a bad review, something happens, but those who are resilient and really push through those obstacles are the ones who are ultimately going to be successful in this business. All right, and that's it for today's daily motivation. I encourage you to subscribe. Please leave me a like. Let me know in the comments section, what are some other tips that you think that you should know before you ever jump into an Airbnb property? And finally, if you're seriously ready to jump into Airbnb and list your first property, feel free to use my link below. When you do that, after hosting your first day, you're gonna get $40 back. And with that, we'll see you next time. And I think this is a video that you might like. Relationship with the retailer. Alex, they're actually recommendations of the retailers. Alex, you have a relationship with your retailer. Alex, if you say retailer again,